Hello, everyone. Hi, and welcome to the Q&A for Awakening Your Intuitive Healing Power, an empath's journey to intuitive awareness, emotional freedom, and physical vitality. I'm Ann Patricia with the Shift Network, and it's my pleasure to be your host as we explore the teachings of Dr. Judith Orloff and address your questions about her course, which begins on Monday, June 15th at 12 noon Pacific. If you're unable to join us live, no worries, you can still join us for this course. I'll explain more about that later with all other details. But first, I'd like to welcome my guest. Judith Orloff, MD, is a psychiatrist, an empath, and the New York Times bestselling author of Guide to Intuitive Healing, 5 Steps to Physical, Emotional, and Sexual Wellness. Her other books include The Empath's Survival Guide and Emotional Freedom. As an intuitive healer and member of the University of California, Los Angeles clinical psychiatric faculty, Dr. Orloff synthesizes traditional medicine with leading-edge knowledge of intuition, energy, and spirituality. She also specializes in treating highly sensitive and empathic people in her private practice. I'm so looking forward to our conversation today with Judith. Welcome, Judith. Great to have you with us.
Oh, it's so great to be here. And what a perfect time to talk about intuitive healing and healing our emotions, our bodies, our relationships, going deeper, how not to absorb the toxic energy of the world right now. I mean, I think we're right at a crux of change, and how we take care of ourselves is so key during this time period.
Thank you for sharing that. So we're going to spend the rest of our time together exploring your questions for Judith as we prepare for her video course, Awakening Your Intuitive Healing Power, which begins on Monday, June 15th at 12 noon Pacific. I'd like to invite you to visit our website, empathintuitivehealing.com, to learn more about this 7-module course, and you'll find a link to register there as well. Now let's get started with your questions. I want to thank everyone who spent so much time sending in questions through our webcast. For those of you joining us live, please type your question into the chat and I'll read them out. We're going to start with some questions sent in through webcast first. So Judith, this one from Marcia. How do we not absorb the grief, sadness, anger, conflict, etc., that prevails around the world, while also being true to ourselves and freely expressing our gifts?
Yes. Oh, Marcia, that's an amazing question. The basis for intuitive healing is learning how to tune into your intuition to make the proper decisions, learn how to set limits and boundaries, and learn how to tune in without absorbing other people's stuff or the world's stuff. So that's what this entire course will deal with, because as a sensitive person, you want to stay centered, you want to stay open. You don't want to be guarded. At the same time, you don't want to take on the energy of the world or of toxic relationships. And so this involves learning how to set clear boundaries, knowing in your heart of hearts it's not your job to take on other people's pain or the world's pain, or if you do, to learn how to breathe it out, to meditate, to set boundaries, to create shields, visualization of shields, to be able to have mantras. Return to sender is one of the ones we'll go over, as you don't want to take it on. And I think so many people need to reevaluate their relationship to compassion and the early messages that they got about compassion. Many of us were taught that to be compassionate, we take on other people's pain, which is the martyr archetype, which is not something you want to do, of course, unless you want to consciously explore the martyr archetype. And so practicing the self-care techniques that we'll go through in the course and learning to heal, Marcia, is really important. Part of this process is learning to heal whatever inside of us. Everyone has something to heal. That's why we're here on earth, is to heal, as far as I'm concerned. But to heal our emotions. In module 4, I'll talk about how to transform challenging emotions. In module 2, how to heal what's stuck in our body or various disease processes that we're going through, because there's a law of energy, is that we tend to absorb what we haven't worked out in ourselves. So as a psychiatrist and a woman on a spiritual path, part of my life path has been to heal along the way and to notice where my emotional triggers are, which we're going to talk about in Module 6. So there are all these techniques, and then there's the general devotional practice of healing ourselves and going deeper and deeper with that. And I hope the course will take all of us to that place.
Great. So several people, Kathy and several others, have talked about how can I help friends and family with their challenges. A lot of these people are helpers, as you know, Judith, without taking those problems on myself. And some are saying they end up sick or they can't stop thinking and cycling through people they love's challenges. What can you share?
Yeah, I mean, that if you're an empath is an emotional sponge who tends to take on both the positivity and the challenging emotions and energies of the world. So if you're an empath, your system isn't as guarded as other people's, and you're porous, so you're open to absorbing what's going on with friends, what's going on with loved ones, what's going on with the world. And so it's important to learn how to hold space rather than absorb. Empaths tend to be codependents, and I say that very respectfully. Where codependent is somebody who's overly involved with other people at the expense of their own well-being. So you have to really look inside yourself to see if you identify with that. And if so, that's fine. That many empaths identify with that, and to learn how to hold space for somebody, meaning stay in a very loving heart space without feeling the need to jump in and do something about it. I mean, you do what you can. This is where intuitive healing comes in, and listening to intuition. You listen to your intuition to see what you can do, what you can, and to see what you can't do, and what is none of your business to do. And so that's something that empaths and sensitive people need to work on all the time. But in terms of all your friends, you love your friends. But I think with each one, you have to identify where you're being triggered, where you may want to overhelp them and take away their suffering when it's not really your job or your ability to do that. However, you can ask yourself, how can I hold space for each one? And each one of your friends is different, by the way. They can't be lumped together in terms of what they're going through when I tune into them. So you have to go through one, name them, write a column on a piece of paper, and say, what is she going through? How am I hooked into it? And how am I wanting to fix it or overgive? The minute your ego gets involved with wanting to fix things, and believe me, I can identify with that as a doctor. I want to fix everything, and I have a lot of knowledge, but it's not always appropriate, and you can't really fix other people. So it's a fine balance, and the great thing about this course is we can get into this in much more detail. How much to give and when, what to listen to. It's always about listening to your intuition, the still small voice inside that tells you the truth about things. But just know, if you're an empath, a sensitive person, of course you're going to be overwhelmed. Of course you want to help all these people. And you do what you can, and less sometimes is more. I've learned that in my practice, where giving a beautiful eye gaze, looking at someone in the eyes, or just smiling, or just saying, I can feel it, and just leaving it at that. Whereas, just as a warning, empaths tend to overhelp and want to do too much and then end up exhausted. So that's just one dynamic in the whole overgiving paradigm.
Thanks, Judith. Andrea is saying, I'm a psychic, medium, medical intuitive empath, and Reiki healer, and it's all taken its toll, even if I just support someone for a few minutes. How can I get rid of negative energy and other people's symptoms and feelings? Do you have any specific maybe exercises or practices you can recommend that I can use?
Yes, and I don't think you said this, but did you say that she takes baths? Did you say that in the question?
No, I did not.
The question, did it? No. That's what I was thinking the whole time, is immersion in water for you, because you require the water element to revive yourself. And this is an ongoing path for you throughout this life. And if you don't have enough water, it's not going to help you in any way. So you have to really submerge yourself in water and, perhaps light candles, have essential oils, but to meditate on the greater waters here on earth, and that will help balance you. And also the number of people that you're seeing. You have to space them out. And we're talking about a very diligent, giving person. I can feel that, but it's too much. And you almost have to stop and reboot at this point to realign everything in terms of what you want your life to be. This question isn't exactly what it seems to be. It's about your energy now, but it's about a bigger theme. And what you want your life to be like in terms of a general theme. And also dealing with your mother, whether she's alive or not, but there's something in there that feels like it's a bit overwhelming and draining. So, that's just, those are a few insights for you, but I really encourage you to get into water. That will help you.
And Judith, when you share about water, it sounds like you're really connecting in here to the specific question, but is that helpful to empaths in general? Are you saying that when we feel like we're taking on people's energies, that being in water is helpful?
It is for a lot of empaths. I'm a water person, and so I've always loved living by the ocean and taking baths, taking showers, drinking water, putting water on my face, listening to the sound of the surf. It's ancient. And so when empaths can get near water, if that's an element that they resonate with, not everybody does, but a lot of empaths love water, that can help balance you, and it can help remind you of more ancient truths that are available to you all the time. So you don't think this is all there is right now. And intuitive healing is being able to shift from your mind and shift from whatever is going on in the world or any problems you're facing, and being able to start attuning to the elements and attuning to nature again so you can get back to your center. Now, that's one thing we're going to deal with in the course over and over again. What throws you off and how can you come back to your center? That's the ongoing exercise of life. But what I'm seeing with my patients and so many people is that they're being thrown off center and they don't know how to come back. And so all the techniques that we'll be talking about through the 3-minute heart meditation that I can lead you through during this Facebook Live talk will help you come back to your heart. You want to basically, as part of intuitive healing, and this is a great, great skill, is to shift out of your mind and into your heart. The mind can be a torture chamber. And so you don't want to be stuck up there. The mind is very useful and it can help you analyze things. But at the same time, if you have recurrent thoughts or you're worrying about things, all of your emotional triggers we'll talk about in Module 6, are all pushed. You need to shift out of your mind and intuitively go deeper into your energy body and reconnect. I can't tell you how many times I do that. And especially, during the times we're going through, which are so demanding in so many different ways and so weird and so surreal and so, intense. How do you, despite all of that, or because of all of that, how do you come back again and again and again and again and again? And this course will be your anchor. Will be a way for you to come back over and over again so you don't feel that overwhelm. And sometimes we need the energy of a group to help us, especially if a lot of people are still in isolation or they're anxious about going out in the world for whatever reason. The larger group is a safety net. And the energy of people coming together in a course like this can help each one of us heal. And so that's important to keep in mind. And not to try and do it yourself. What's going on in the world is too big. The skills that we'll talk about, the skills that I practice day in and day out as an empath, trying to center myself and succeeding for most of the time, sometimes not, but succeeding. It's what my goal is. And so, that's part of our path right now on a spiritual path, on the path to meaning. If you're looking at what is your meaning during this time, and what is the meaning afterwards, what is the meaning before, your intuition can help you tune into that. This is something your mind can help with, but it can't really give you the goosebumps or the intuitive signs that tell you you're right on center and you know what your meaning is. And if ever you doubt, if ever you're out of touch, if ever you're overwhelmed taking on too much stuff from the world or people, come back to nature over and over again, whether it's water, if you can be by a lake, if you can be by the ocean, if you can watch videos or listen to sound of the waves breaking, that will connect you to a more primal aspect of yourself, which will be replenishing, as opposed to just being in the active mind up here trying to solve problems. As the mind can't solve what's going on in the world today, but the heart can give you the peace and solace to go through it with brightness and calm.
That is so wonderful, Judith. Thinking of that, moving from mind to heart, what's the difference between being in the heart, as you're referencing, versus being swept away by emotions, where someone feels like they're in their heart, but they're emotionally draining and drowning in their own emotions?
Yes, good distinction. When I talk about the heart, I'm not talking about personal emotions necessarily. I'm talking about the energy body and opening up a place in our chest, which is the center for unconditional love. And we'll have a whole module on this in terms of energy healing and how to access these energies, not just think about them, but access them in your body so you can call on it whenever. But the heart is an energy center right in the center of the chest, and it's the center for unconditional love. Most people are not skilled in opening it. And so learning to open up the heart, which is the healing energy, once you do through meditation, through visualization, through focusing on something that you love and allowing that to expand the energy of the heart, then you develop an ongoing light that comes from you. And that light or that energy goes down your arms, out your hands, and into the world and through your body. So it's regenerative for you, and it puts beautiful energy in the world, as opposed to emotions that are out of control and not helpful in that way. I mean, I believe in emotional release, but I also believe that there's stages after that we need to deal with our emotions in order to come from a centered place, not from an intellectual place or a denial, but to come from a centered place. And how to transform, how do you transform all this panic in the world? How do you transform every emotional trigger that's being push now, fear of death, fear of aloneness, fear of poor health. I mean, and you name it. You have to really identify what your triggers are. But people are being pushed left and right now. So, from my point of view, in the Taoist practice, this is what life is all about. Where you get triggered, you deal with it, you transcend, you become freer. And that's the whole point of this course, and the point of intuitive healing is to heal so we don't carry so much in our bodies. To go listen to the ancient surf in order to quiet those incessant voices in the mind, and to remember something larger about yourself. To go in and practice the 3-minute heart meditation, to connect to nature. All of that, it's so exciting to me because now is the time to learn all this, and we have the external triggers and impetus to do that. This is the, pretty intense time. So if we look at it that way as an experimental laboratory for transcendence, that's what we're called to do now.
Bridget is saying, can you speak a little about healing deep trauma from infancy? And if you have tools to share in the course that can help heal very young inner child and infant.
Oh, that's such a good question. Is that what she's wanting to do?
I think so. That's what Bridget's asking.
Yeah, yes, we're having a whole module on trauma and addictions and healing that. But that's a huge question. It's a hugely important question that we'll address. But just one key to healing the trauma is that you've got to reclaim that inner child who was traumatized and find that trauma, the traumatized child, no matter what age it is, and go back to the house, literally in your meditations, in your visualizations, to go back and find him or her. So you can't really heal the trauma without that. You've got to go back and find him or her and say to her or him, I'm so sorry you were hurt. Will never allow that to happen to you again, and I'm going to take you home with me. So you do that, and that one step, and you bring whatever shape she's in or he's in, you bring her home and you keep her with you for the rest of time. So it's, part of reclaiming the trauma is identifying when the trauma took place and going and reclaiming it. It's like a fragmented part of your soul or your being. And so it's powerful work, but you have to do it really slowly. And you have to tune into your body. You have to tune into your intuition. That's what I don't want people to do, is to get overwhelmed and to do too much too fast. As you get into the area of trauma and remembering, and it's really intense. So you want to show yourself a lot of compassion, and we'll go through other tools. This is just one of them. It's usually good to do it with a guide, if you can have somebody guide you back in time to find this part of yourself, and let the healing begin. So, good question.
Thanks, Judith. Lucia says, I would like to know more what you can recommend to do when I notice that I experience feelings that are not my own. I recognize that some of the bad feelings are mine and some are someone else's. How do we know the difference? And what do you recommend we do when we notice they're not ours?
Well, one quick thing to do if you're actually in physical proximity of somebody is to move away 20 feet and to see if certain feelings lessen. I'm not sure you can do that in this day and time, but in the past, I would recommend that, because sometimes when you get away, people have these energy fields that can extend many, many feet from the body. And when you get out of that awareness of their energy field, then you can see, I don't feel so angry anymore. I mean, some people you could just stand next to and suddenly you're angry, and you can't explain it because you didn't really have any anger when you walked in that store. And so you back off 20 feet, but you also have to know your own dynamics. And so part of the course, when we talk about emotions, it's going to be listing the top 5 emotional triggers that you have, so that you can know that. Because, see, the energetic dynamic is, and I mentioned this earlier, is that we pick up emotions that we haven't quite healed in ourselves. And so we're much more prone to absorb those. All right. So part of the answer to your question is identifying your own triggers and, honestly, non-defensively beginning to heal them. That's very powerful emotional work. And then also you can ask yourself, is this emotion mine or is it someone else's? This is a mantra that I just suggest all my empath patients, so that they can get used to asking themselves that question. Rather than, like many empaths, what happens is they think they're neurotic. They put themselves down saying, I should be able to handle this. Why am I feeling so overwhelmed around this person who everybody else likes, and I'm not feeling good around them? So you start this whole internal dialogue that is not helpful. And so as an empath, as a sensitive person, just asking that question, is a really good start. And then always breathing out emotions that you don't think are yours. As you don't want these to stay in your body, you want these to flow out and circulate. And what happens to people sometimes is when they get afraid, they clench and they stop breathing. And so if you pick up anger, if you pick up depression, if you pick up anxiety that you didn't have before you went into this situation, it could be that you're picking up the general energy of the room. It doesn't have to be a specific person. The whole energy of the room or the space can feel a certain way. Or if you're around a family member and you know their dynamics and you're aware of, see, part of this course is about being aware of your energy and noticing how it shifts around certain people and then taking steps once you notice that. It's a mindful awareness of how your energy relates to certain people. And if they're very positive, now how you can maximize that. And if they're not so positive or if they have difficult emotions, how to set boundaries with that. Rather than just staying an open sponge around somebody who's a rageaholic, let's say. That's not at all suggested. That's not going to help you at all. It's not going to help them at all if you indulge in that. So that's, in part, answer to your question.
Very helpful, Judith. Thank you. So we're here with Dr. Judith Orloff learning about her course, Awakening Your Intuitive Healing Power, which begins Monday, June 15th. Please log on to empathintuitivehealing.com for all the details and a link to register. So Denise is saying, how do you know whether you have intuitive or empathic skills? Is it a feeling, signs? How do you know?
That's a great question. And the first module will go through different forms of intuition and see which ones you identify with. She's a very, very, very intuitive person. So I'm interested in her motivation for why she's asking this question. But in terms of listening to your body, I mean, the only thing that would get in your way is your own mind. And your preoccupation with what makes you anxious. But if you're able to breathe and center yourself and listen to your gut feeling, who feels good around? Who do I feel good around? Who doesn't feel so good? And begin to get in touch with the barometer of your body. Intuition doesn't come through the mind. It comes through the body. And so it means dropping into your body and getting in touch with the gut, or also known as the enteric nervous system, which has neurotransmitters that convey information similar to the ones in the brain. And so when you're in touch with your gut and you don't write it off as, that doesn't mean anything, that's the first step. And notice your energy field. That's another form of intuition, is how does your energy feel around people? Does it go up? Does it go down? Now, how do you relate? That's a form of intuiting what's going on in your body and staying not hypervigilant, but sometimes empaths can get hypervigilant and they're constantly tracking their environment because it doesn't feel safe. But it's more just staying attuned and slowing everything down. As we learn these intuitive healing skills, you have to slow down your rhythm because it requires a savoring and a noticing of what's going on in the body, in your gut, in your energy field, any goosebumps, wave of goosebumps that come through that give you an affirmation of yes or no, stay away. It can be either or. And so you need to be aware of that and be aware of any snapshot like flashes, bam, they come through and you get an image, you get a knowing, you get an aha. Some intuitions are kinesthetic. You just know in your body, this isn't good for me. And then notice how your mind might argue with that. So that's the dynamic we'll get into. How do you deal with the mind? And then also fear. How do you know the difference between intuition and fear? And then listening to your dreams is one topic we'll talk about in the course too. I'm a big, big dreamer, and many empaths are dream empaths, where they go to their dreams for guidance and solace. So this is something that we'll talk about. How do you know the meaning of dreams? How do you even access that intuitive information? So all of those are different kinds of intuitions that you can work with. And some you may resonate with more than others. Some you might really be a dreamer, or you might be kinesthetic, or you might be visual, where you get flashes, or some people are auditory, where they get auditory information. This is an opportunity to explore all those modes, find out what's yours, slow down time, slow down how you're learning and tuning into yourself, giving yourself time to tune in. Many times people lose touch with their intuition because they're going too fast and they're thinking too much and talking too much. So connecting to your intuition sometimes just means going slower, being quieter, not trying to fill the spaces, not trying to solve problems. But even, again, water, we keep coming back to that. Immersing yourself in water slows you down, all right? Or going out in nature, going to mountains, going hiking, looking at the trees, seeing the creatures. That will slow you down, because our mechanistic world has caused our minds to go so fast that it can sometimes obscure the more primal intuitive signals that we're getting. And I love giving a course on intuitive healing to help the primal intuitive signals come more to the surface. They're always there. Like if there's anyone out there thinking, oh, I'm not very intuitive, that's not true. You might be out of touch with it, but if you have the desire to reconnect to that part of yourself, it's always there for you. Always, I promise you that.
Thank you so much, Judith. And what I'm really enjoying is observing and just getting to see firsthand how you're listening and using your intuition right here, how you're answering these questions and being so present with everyone. And I'd love to know, we've had some questions about how do you learn to trust yourself? So for you, what was the key to really learning to trust that what's coming through is your intuition?
Well, that's a good question. I think one answer to it is when I first started incorporating my intuition into my medical practice, right before I started doing that, I had a patient who made a suicide attempt, and I had an intuition about it before it happened, but I didn't listen to it because I didn't think it was accurate and I didn't give it enough credence. And she overdosed on the antidepressants that I had prescribed for her and ended up in a coma in an intensive care unit in a hospital for 3 weeks. And so at that point, that was really my great awakener, where I knew that I had to, as a physician, bring my intuition into patient care because I felt that I had harmed her. You see, and so that not listening was the impetus that got me to listen, you see. And so sometimes, human beings are stubborn. They don't listen. Even if you get intuitions, and we'll talk about this, if you get intuitions and you don't listen to them, then what? That happens a lot. And so, my patients, a lot of them can tune in, but whether or not they're going to follow is another story. So that's where the mind comes in. And we'll talk about, how to quiet the mind and make a choice. At this point, you really have to make a choice about how you want to lead your life. If you want to lead a life that's based on intuition, then so be it. Also integrating the mind, but not being captive in the torment of the mind. But you make a decision. And it's a decision I made a long time ago. And it's the way I want to live. I couldn't imagine not listening to my intuition. Life would not work out very well. And it's so much a part of how I listen to you, how I'm tuning into the questions, the great questions that people are submitting, and how I'll tune into people in the group, in the course, because it's how I operate, especially in teaching situations. But I want to make a point. I don't go out in the world, in airports or in grocery stores and stay open to my intuition. That's I really don't want to pick up on what's going on in other people. I want to have more time off. So it's not like it's just on 24 hours a day. You can have a choice about how open you are. But overall, the general commitment to leading a life that's based on listening is very important to me. And I invite everyone to evaluate that commitment in your life too. It's an important one. It's an important distinction to make in your own mind. And I can only say that as an empath and as a devotee to intuition, basically, it makes an incredible life. We've been talking about a lot of the challenges that happen. But being an empath and being open to your intuition allows you to connect with life on such a deep level. And it allows you to love at such a deep level. It allows you to be a part of the whole experience here on Earth in so many fantastic ways, and be good friends to people and be in relationships that are satisfying, being open to the surprises that happen from the intuitive life, because new things happen every day. I mean, I go to sleep and every morning is a new dream. And I use these dreams to guide my life. Every morning I write them down. So if you want freshness, if you want meaning, if you want purpose, if you want kind of newness all the time, a freshness is a better term, then intuition can give you that. The mind can be very wearing, especially as you age. Like people who just stay stuck in their heads all these years, and the years go by and they get older. It's a hard way to live, because it's not nurturing the body necessarily. They're nurturing their brilliant intellects, but not the body. And intuitive healing is about nurturing mind, body, and spirit, which helps the aging process tremendously. If you want to stay vibrant and full of life, the way to do it is to tune into your intuition and keep your energy flowing, keep your intuition open, keep tuning in, keep being open to the changes of life and all the different movements and rhythms that are going on. That keeps you alive, as opposed to just retreating in the mind as you get older and then sort of contracting, which isn't very appealing to me.
That's so interesting. And I've had a lot of questions come in like this, and so I have to bring it forward. When you speak about opening to intuition, and then when you go into the grocery store, for example, what's the shift that you make personally that makes the difference between you being open and also the time you decide, no, now's not the time to be open to everyone's intuition, to my intuition, and to everyone's experience around me?
A great question. It's a conscious choice on my part. Whereas we're sitting here for this hour together, my conscious choice is to open up my heart, open up my antennae, stay open to people who are asking questions, because I can tune into them as I'm hearing the question coming through you, and to be of service as much as possible. That's my goal. But if I go into the market, I bring my energy in. I'm much more condensed. I'm much more contained. My energy isn't going out all over the place with my antennae out, feeling everything, because I don't want to do that there. Especially now, it's a pretty stressful place for me to go shopping. So I want to keep my energy. I visualize it very close to my body. I don't make eye contact with a lot of people, because that's a way of connecting to energies. If you look at people or you smile at them, I just stay in my bubble. I have a protective bubble, and I stay in it. And I'm very task oriented. I go to the vegetable section. I go to the cereal section. I go wherever I go, I'm just going there. And I'm trying not to interact. I'm staying very contained. But for everyone listening, you have a choice of doing that. And how you set your mind, this is where the mind can be very useful too. You would say, okay, this is the situation where I don't really want to be that open, and that's fine. You just bring it in. You're just in your bubble. You can practice a bubble visualization and just stay in it and give yourself permission. There's nothing wrong with it. You don't have to be open to everybody all the time. And that's a mistake that empaths often make.
Well, we have time for more questions, but first, before we take those, I just want to give you a few details about awakening your intuitive healing power. As you can tell, this is going to be a healing and transformative 7 weeks with Judith, where you'll learn to tune into deeper healing and compassion. The 7-module course takes place on Mondays at 12 noon Pacific, starting June the 15th. You'll receive audio and video replays, transcripts, and any other materials through your course homepage. It's like our virtual classroom. Also, I'd like to remind you that we offer a no-risk money-back guarantee on all of our courses, giving you a full 2 weeks. In this case, it's until June the 29th to make sure you absolutely love this course. And as an added option, all participants are welcome and encouraged to connect to a private Facebook community group to stay connected with one another. Now, everyone who registers receives the Awakening Your Intuitive Healing Power bonus collection. And this includes a few permanent bonuses for everyone who registers: self-care practices for empaths and sensitive people. This is a PDF from Judith. 5 steps to intuitive decision making. We can all use that. 2-part video teaching from Judith. And developing intuition package. This is a multi-part audio from Judith. And when you register by midnight Pacific, June the 11th, you will receive a very special bonus. If you know you really want to join us, this is coming to you. How to stay positive in times of uncertainty. This is an audio from Judith. And this is an uplifting workshop where Judith discusses the power of staying positive no matter what's happening in our lives. Oh, that's an audio teaching for the times, right? So we're going to get back to your questions now. Ken is asking, hi, Judith. I love the idea of tuning in without absorbing. I enjoy the positive I take on, but the negative feels like it's hurting me. Will there be practices in this course to work with it, to learn how to work with these feelings?
Oh, yes, that's a huge theme of the course, is how to work with the feelings so they don't stay lodged in your body. You need to identify them, identify when they've come in your body, notice what your triggers are, make a commitment, at least for the 7 weeks, to heal the triggers to the best of your ability, or start with 1 or 2, and develop practices to let the energy go, ideally before it comes in your body, but if you absorb it, how to let it go. So this is a skill set to learn. And these are all skills that you can practice and you can learn from. You can see where your resistances are, to see where your problems are with it, to see where your victories are, and just begin to practice it. And what I've seen with so many of my students over the years is that the whole process of intuitively tuning in and noticing your resistances, the difficulties, the victories, that all gets the whole healing energy going, so that the whole process takes form in your own body. And doing that together is a lot easier than doing it alone. Let me tell you, when you have a group all with a unified purpose of healing like this and tuning into your intuition, it can accelerate your own healing in a comfortable way, not too fast, not overwhelm. That's not what I'm talking about. But for you to learn skills to tune into your body, find a rhythm that's right for you and a centeredness so that you have the strength to deal with whatever issues you need to deal with on an emotional level. And I think that's important for you in terms of the emotional healing and having healthy relationships. And in the past, perhaps having people or influences that didn't understand you and weren't able to nurture you in the way that you needed. And so it's all about kind of coming into that with love. And no harshness, no forcing, no going to areas that you're not comfortable with. If you don't want to go, don't go. And that's my attitude for this whole course. This is for you. Intuition is about attraction. If you're drawn to it, you do it. If you don't want to do the homework assignments, don't do it. This is for you. This isn't what it is for me, and that I'm connecting with you and the whole healing miracle of this course. But in terms of what you're moved to do in your life, in terms of the practices that you mentioned, in terms of what you want to heal in yourself, you just do it at your own pace. And if you're not ready, don't do it. Now, this is where intuition comes in, where you have to sense. So much of healing is about timing. And so if you feel ready to get into certain things, great. If you don't, great. You see, but this is about listening. And I think, as I'm talking to you, Ken, it's like more and more the power of intuitive listening to yourself and to others without taking on other people's stuff is a beautiful theme of this course.
Thanks, Judith. I know how important dreams are to you. You've mentioned it. You've mentioned it to me before. And Manuela and Natasha are asking about what advice you can give for remembering dreams and how to begin to discern what they mean.
I love that question. I love it when people ask that question because even if you haven't remembered your dreams in a really long time, you can begin again. And sometimes people forget their dreams because they had some kind of trauma as children or earlier in life, and the nightmares started coming, so they just shut off the remembrance of their dream life. So it's up to you when you want to remember again. And if you do, it will be extremely liberating for you. And so the best way to remember, if you want to remember, not forcing yourself to remember, but if you desire, if you have an intuitive feeling, this feels interesting, and I want to go here. I want to explore here. It's a feeling. It's a kinesthetic. I just want to keep getting that across to everybody. It's not, oh, it's a good idea to explore my dreams, which it may be, but that's not enough. That's not enough of a reason to go into it, as far as I'm concerned. It's about, am I attracted to it? Do I want to go there? Do I want to listen? Do I want to deal with what comes up? Whether it's challenging or not challenging. Am I open to what the universe brings me or my subconscious? So you think about that as you get into the dream realm. And to remember, you get a journal, you put it by your bed, or you have a voice activated something on your phone that you could record the dream, but keep it by your bed, a journal, or formulate a question. Please let me remember my dreams, just in the beginning, if you want to remember. And then go to sleep. And in the morning, for 5 minutes, stay in the hypnagogic state between sleep and waking. And this is the state of kind of the doors of perception open, as Aldous Huxley put it. You want to stay in this state, neither fully awake nor fully asleep, maybe under your covers, and remember whatever comes to you about your dreams, anything, and especially the embarrassing parts or the parts you might want to just say, too weird, I don't want to include that. But you write everything down or you record it on your phone, and then you say thank you. There's so much about gratitude in terms of intuition and the dream realm. When you're offered something, even if it makes you a little uncomfortable, it's an offering. I look at all this as very sacred and something to really value. It's an offering, and I hope you listen to it. But to get the remembering process going, I would just try that with the dream journal, hypnagogic state, no talking for a few minutes when you first wake up. The talking will get you into linear mode, which will make the dreams dissipate. As we dream every 90 to 120 minutes every night, and it's not that we don't dream, most people just don't remember their dreams. So what you're doing through this dream journal and this evocative dream technique, which will go into much more detail in the course, is asking to remember. And that, to me, is a very powerful request, asking to remember, voluntarily wanting to remember wisdom. And if you're ready, then it will come. And don't be discouraged if the first night you don't remember something or the next night. Keep it up for a week or 2 weeks. And then it's just about opening that part of you up, which was really always open. You're just not remembering it at this point. And then when the information starts to come through, you can ask questions to dreams. You can say, now, what can I do about this relationship? Or how can I improve my health? Whatever question you want, and then you can ask it, go to sleep, stay in the hypnagogic state when you wake up, write it down, and then apply what you get to your question. So that's the short version.
Thanks, Judith. So there's a couple of questions I'm feeling called to bring forward right now from Carolyn and Holly. And Carolyn is sharing how responsible she feels for the suffering. She just feels a lot of responsibility. And Holly's sharing that she feels a lot of guilt, a lot of shoulds. So they're both asking for some insight for you around those carrying of responsibility and guilt.
Yes, I understand. But how can I put this gently? These are your issues. They don't have to do necessarily with the truth of the situation. And it's important to deal with ego issues when they come up, where you're feeling overly responsible for another human being, or you're feeling overly responsible for the homeless encampment that you drive by, or you're feeling overly responsible for the actions of certain narcissists, who are dictating things. This isn't you. And the ego and the empathic heart, the big heart of the empath, wants to have a heart big enough to hold it all. And it doesn't exactly work that way. I suggest if you have a lot of guilt, you have to work with your own personal guilt. And what was the first one? She feels responsible.
Yes, one feels responsible, one feels, the should, and the other one feels guilt. Responsible and guilt. Mm-hmm.
And what was the name of the first person?
So the first one is Carolyn, who talks about really feeling so responsible. And the second one is Holly, who talks about a lot of shoulds and the guilt.
Yeah. Well, Holly is the easier case because she's had guilt all her life. And so learning to deal with the emotional trigger of guilt is a really wonderful exercise. It's not your fault. See, again, these are all issues that harken back to early upbringing to me. But of course, we'd have to talk more about it and explore it more. But in terms of Carolyn, what's confusing to me about her question is that when I tune into her, she's so open. And she's so capable. And I would assume she's a healer from what I'm picking up. And it doesn't feel like she's taking on that much. She feels in very good shape. So, I just invite her to consider maybe focusing on what kind of shape she actually is in. That she's a little bit better off than taking it all on. You're taking it on, but not to the extent that a lot of people take it on. That I could feel, in my own body when I take on a lot, it's a pain, constriction, limitation. And I don't sense any of that, or some of it, but very not bad, Carolyn. So I would encourage you to look at what's working, in terms of what the healing capacities in you that are doing so much good. I would focus on that right now.
Thanks so much, Judith. So based on that little seed of what's working, you talked about holding space, staying in the loving heart space, listening to intuition, listening to the still small voice, staying out of the mind and into the heart. What's possible for empaths? What is really possible?
Everything. Everything is possible. When you look at just the list that you ran down, to me, that's a really exciting list. That the ability to do all of those things. And, there's I always love the saying, the meek will inherit the earth. It's actually translated, the sensitive will inherit the earth. Because I feel so strongly about intuitive healing and sensitive people, empathic people, is that, I think they're the answer to saving everything. And I don't think that's overstated either. I think sensitive people have the heart. They have the capacity of heart. They don't have the narcissism that would stop them from being able to take care of the earth. They have the heart to be able to do that and to take care of themselves. And so, I see this all as life-saving, a way to replenish your own body. It's not just about being of service to others, but it is in part. But it's about giving yourself the time and the retreat space of this course or other places in your life to take that retreat space and go into prayerful states and begin to continue to replenish yourself and listen to your intuition. And that will help you be in better shape to be of service to others, to know how to set limits and boundaries, to know when not to overgive, to know how to hold your energy in versus having it wide open all the time. Some of the themes we talked about today, all of this is a very exciting way to live. It's very vibrant and dynamic. And, when we're talking about Holly dealing with guilt, I mean, that's such a beautiful question to ask and such an honest question, because it is something to begin to heal. And so much of healing emotions comes from being able to shift from a small part of yourself into a larger part that can hold the bigger picture. And so learning to make that shift and then be in a witness state and look back at the smaller part to compassionately see where the guilt came from. That's, it's an exercise in self-love and freedom. That's the whole point of doing this is to be free, to be of service to your own healing, to help the healing of others. It's to be free. You don't want to be bound up. You don't want to be closed down or burdened all of your life. As the years go on, you want to become less burdened, lighter, the lightness of spirit. You look at the Dalai Lama, the way he's aged, the lightness, the humor, the attraction, I'll speak for myself, that I feel to him and to his energy. And to develop the heart energy, which we'll be talking about as part of intuitive healing, developing a conscious energy presence. How to do that, how to consciously develop a heart presence, which will help you internally in so many ways, and it will help create positivity in the world as well. And so these are skill sets that certainly most medical students aren't taught this, and people in their training programs aren't taught this, but I think this needs to be life 101. And, if let's say you've explored your intuition before, maybe this is a call to go even deeper. There's never an end. You never become an expert in this. It's always the student. You gain more skills and you gain more confidence and more heart, but you never become an expert at it. It's an ongoing practice that goes on and on and on forever.
Well, this has been a wonderful hour with you, Judith. I want to thank everyone for joining us. Awakening Your Intuitive Healing Power begins Monday, June the 15th. We hope you are inspired to join us. Again, please visit empathintuitivehealing.com to learn more about this course and to register. And for those of you that do, by midnight Pacific, June the 11th, you will receive the special bonus, Judith's audio teaching, How to Stay Positive in Times of Uncertainty. Judith, over to you for final words to our listeners. Anything that you're feeling called to share at this point?
Just don't dismay. This is a time of great growth, and it's a time of going inward and kindling the light within. And knowing your own strength, it's a time to own your own power more than ever before, and not to succumb to fear, which is an ongoing lesson before this and after. Always not to succumb, and listen to your intuition to help guide you like a bright light in your being, something that you trust, something that will get you through anything. And so that's very exciting. Very exciting, and stay in touch with your power. Don't give it away to anybody.
Thank you so much, Judith. It was so great having you here today. Paul, thank you, everyone.
And everyone.
Thank you. Thanks everyone for joining us today. On behalf of all of us here at the Shift Network, we wish you well, and we look forward to having you on this course or on one in the future. Be well.